Perfect. So everybody is coming into the meeting. First and foremost, I always like to start off with saying thank you to all you guys that are able to join. I'm really excited about our discussion today. We got really cool guests. Joseph Giacobbo, Joey G. Grew up in the Philadelphia area. Watched him play from day one and watched him grow up into an NCAA goalie. I'm really excited to kind of have him on the call. We also have Guy Blessing, a recent USHL draft pick, Division I commit to Air Force, and we're going to talk about their story. Again, I want this to be interactive. I want you guys to be engaged in this process. So anytime that you have questions, or if you have a point that you want to discuss, or if you have things that you want to ask these guys about their path or their journey or their story, please jump into the chat feature, type anything up, and we'll bring it up. As always, we have Mitch. Mitch Harris is here, the Goalie Doctor Junior Mentor. So we'll be kind of piggybacking this. But let me start off with the local boy first. Joey, first and foremost, thanks for jumping on the call. I know that you've been pulling your hair out, not being able to get back on the ice. And you had a phenomenal year this year with Utica. Freshman year up there, first year in college. A little bit disappointing to have the season end the way that it did with the virus and everything. But you guys were hitting on all cylinders, playing well. Nationally ranked. I think you guys were the highest ranked of your program ever. What was that like for you this year?
I mean, honestly, I didn't know much going into the year, and we kind of started off slow, and then Christmas break came around, and after Christmas break, we just turned the corner and everything was just clicking, and it was really good to see. I mean, we had a lot of success, and obviously we wish we could have played in the tournament and seen what happened, because we thought we were capable of winning the national championship this year. So
yeah, you guys won the UCHC, which is the same league that Newman plays in, Manhattanville, Stevenson. We had Coach Tom Peffel and Kyle Mountain on the call a few weeks ago. You battled against those guys, and I'm very proud to see you follow in my footsteps and play in the same league. Not only the same league as me, but your brother. Your brother went to Newman, national champion with me in 2009. It's kind of cool to kind of see you following all of our footsteps, and we're real excited about that. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background? Tell us your story. How did you get to to Utica? What kind of led you there? Obviously, you played in the CCHL, which is also a very high level, junior A. I played up there in Brockville. Yeah. You got to live up in Canada with a billet family, kind of embrace that whole junior mentality and lead on to college. But even before that, you grew up playing Little Flyers and going through the ranks in the local rinks like most of these guys. Tell us your story.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing for the Philly Little Flyers my whole life, basically, and transitioned into juniors. My first year, I played for the Little Flyers EHL team, and we had a really good team that year too. We won 30 games in a row, and for me as a goalie, it was nice just to have my first year of juniors. My workload in games wasn't really too stressful. I was seeing maybe 15 to 20 shots a game, and it really transitioned me to help me for the next levels and stuff like that. And I thought just seeing like 20 shots was perfect, and it really eased me in. And then the next year I took the next step, and I started off that season with the Amarillo Bulls in the North American League, and I was there for about a month, and things didn't really work out. There was a lot of goalies and whatnot, and I ended up going up to the CCHL and played for the Nav and Grads up there. And, that year was probably the most important year for me of my career, just because I didn't really play in front of the best team, but I was seeing 40 to 50 shots a game versus the year before I was seeing maybe 15 to 20. And that's where I really got improved the most, I think, not only on the ice, but just mentally. Like I said, the team wasn't the greatest, so it was definitely mentally tough too, just to be able to keep battling and just taking it one day at a time. Fortunately, that year ended, and that off season I ended up getting a trade out of there to the Rockland Nationals, and this was for my final year of juniors. And we had a really young group, but these guys were very skilled, and I was very lucky to be able to be a veteran guy for them and kind of lead them to the fourth overall seed in the CCHL that year, and we were semifinalists in the playoffs. And it was just a really good experience, just being able to play up in Canada and living away from home. It really helped me grow up a ton, as you would know.
Oh yeah, that's an awesome story, and obviously I'm very proud of you. I don't know if I've told you this enough, but I watched you grow up whenever I was still playing, watching you playing with your brother, and you come to the rinks and seeing you a little tyke and grow up to where you're at now. I'm very proud. So be proud of yourself as well. Mitch, why don't you jump in and give Guy a nice little intro, and then we'll start touching on his past.
Absolutely. So guys, Guy, it's an you're an amazing story. You and I met last year at the Omaha Lancers Development Camp, and prior to getting to that camp, Jason Power said to me, "You got to see this one goalie." And I said, "Which one?" He's like, "You'll know when you see him." So we get out there on the ice, and first of all, your style is 100% is awesome. So I step on the ice, see you skate, and Jason told me, he's like, "I'm not going to tell you anything about him. Just see him, let me know what you think." We skate on the ice, and I could see it solid. I mean, just honestly, probably the best goalie out there, and it wasn't even close. And I said, "Okay, tell me what's the kid's story." He's from Arizona, never really had a goalie coach, didn't play Tier 1, played 1 year of prep school, and he's going to go right to the USHL or the NA. I'm like, "Excuse me?" I'm gonna open the door right to you, Guy. I mean, like I said, your story is amazing, but I really wanted to bring you on because we have some kids here who haven't played Tier 1, and we want to let them know it's not always about playing Tier 1. You can get to where you need to be just playing the best of your ability. So, Guy, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, I never really played Tier 1 growing up. I tried for about 3 or 4 years straight to get a spot on both the organizations here, but I never got picked for them. And obviously, it's a little disappointing when it happens, and you'll blame yourself a little bit for it. But I mean, you can take it from me. I played AA for 10 years before I even had a shot at AAA, and I don't really think it makes too big of a difference because really, when it comes down to it, scouting is so good these days that if you're working hard and you're making a difference at whatever level you're at, they're going to find you. And really, you just got to wait for your opportunity. And for me, ended up going to prep school my senior year of high school. And once you get that opportunity, you got to run with it because that's your shot. And if you succeed with that, believe me, it doesn't make a difference if you play AAA or AA. They're going to find you and you'll have success.
Yeah. I mean, your path is pretty impressive, but I think you hit on a very good point to bring up, right? It doesn't really matter what your past is whenever you see an opportunity, you gain an opportunity. It's what you do with that opportunity. So if you failed 5 times before and you get another opportunity, you could succeed with that one and propel yourself on to bigger and better. So that's a phenomenal message. I mean, there's so many things that we'll jump into in the conversation, but leading off from that point, going from prep school to the North American, what was your experience this year playing there, and how did that lead to getting drafted this past few weeks ago in the USHL?
Yeah, so coming out of school, I actually intended on going back for a post-grad year, and I kind of just went to Omaha's camp just for the experience of it. I had no idea what the level was going to be there. I had no intention of even coming close to competing with those guys, but it turned out to be a really good camp, and I ended up making that team out of main camp, which I just thought was ridiculous. And so I went to training camp, and they ended up sending me down to the Knoll after that, which the same thing as the AAA stuff. It's disappointing. It's not what you expect, but it ended up being an absolute blessing because you get a decent amount more shots in the Knoll, and really it was just good for my experience. I had no idea how big of a difference experience would make, but I can confidently say I feel much better after 1 year at juniors than I felt before it, and that's just on getting minutes. So wherever you go, I mean, I'd say that's probably the most important thing is making sure you're going to get time.
For sure.
Because that's what made the difference. Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. It makes a big difference when you're playing for a coaching staff or a coach or a goalie coach or a team that wants you to be in that crease and be their rock. And obviously, you guys both have a little bit of similarities, but also a few differences. One of the first points I want to bring up is the mental side. And you guys, obviously have the ability to step on the ice and compete and battle and make saves and do all the things that you have to do physically. But we all know that this position is very mentally exhausting. I'll propose this to you first, right? You told us about your story. You went down to Amarillo, and that was the goal, and it didn't work out. So you had a little bit of adversity in your life there, and also looking down the road when you're up in Canada, you're a foreigner in a foreign land with different people who don't know where you live. Mom and dad are 8 hours away. You get traded. What next? Like how do you process some of that failure and use that to propel you on to bigger and better things, and then use that to hopefully prepare yourself to handle things later on?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, at first it stinks, but you just got to pick up right where you left off and kind of just keep working hard. And, fortunately for me, I was able to get in a position where the coaching staff really believed in me and knew my capabilities. And, once that kind of happens, it just clicks, and your work ethic and everything else just kind of follows suit, and it really works out. And like Guy said, it's always important to find a place where you're going to play and be able to make a difference at the end of the day.
And Guy, for you, you said you tried out for 3 years and you got told no. Some people get that, and then they tuck their tail between their legs and they run home, but it looks like you used it as motivation, almost like a chip on your shoulders, like, hey, I don't need these guys. I'm going to be able to do this on my own. You sound self-made. How do you use those type of situations to propel yourself to be successful in the future?
Well, I mean, it goes back to what you said about playing where you're wanted. I mean, me and my dad kind of realized after 3 or 4 years trying out for this, like, look, if they don't want us, then, I mean, what's the point in trying our best to please them? Like, there are plenty of AA organizations in the state that had great coaching, and they had goalie coaching as well, which made a big difference. So we figured, look, if it's not an issue if we can just go and play for a AA team that wants us. It's a nice situation to be in.
For sure. So changing gears a little bit, and I'll pose the question to both of you guys. Gio, we'll start with you. Talk about a little bit about the college process, about how did you get to Utica? What was, because we have some younger guys who are going to get to that level at some point. So how does that process work where you ended up picking Utica, but what else was involved with that?
Just going into my last year of juniors, I had some feelers from some D1 schools that, obviously Division I's everybody's main goal, but at the same time too, I knew that I needed to have a good backup plan in case Division I didn't really work out. So, at the start of my last year, I emailed D1 schools. I did some little research that were losing goalies and stuff like that, and sent out some emails just to get my name out. And then after that, I kind of moved my focus towards D3 schools, and same thing, just kind of put out a little feeler of an email, see what their situation was and stuff like that. And then, once you get the feedback from the colleges, you can kind of make your judgment on which schools need a goalie, which schools, need a starter and whatnot. And then after that, it's always important to see if they have your major and stuff like that too. So it's really a long process, but at the same time too, most of the coaches are, more than willing to work with you and help you out with, whatever you have and whatever questions you have too. So it's nice.
Cool. Guy, I know you're definitely also an interesting story going, commit to Air Force. So talk a little bit about where, how'd you pick Air Force, and what about other schools as well that you had considered?
So all of that stuff actually happened really fast for me. I didn't talk to anybody before that Lancers main camp. And then out of that, we had a few schools come up to us, and it's a little overwhelming at first because, you go 10 years without talking to anybody, and then, you got 3 or 4 right away. But when it comes down to it, just the same theme. You kind of want to go where you're wanted, and you're going to get some time. And we had a lot of talks with Frank and Joe, that's the coaching staff over there, and Andy, and it just turned out to be a great fit because, it's a fantastic school, and I was looking for a good education. And then the prospect of, if you go in there and battle and do your job, you could get some minutes as well, which is just something that it's just the perfect combo for us.
And what's your major going to be?
Either physics or aerospace engineering.
Not a big deal.
He's a smart guy. I was saying this on a call on Sunday. The goalies are the smart ones. That's awesome. Congratulations. And Gio, what are you going for?
I'm business economics and finance.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But again, right, like to be honest, we all play this game because we love it. But at the same time, these two gentlemen that are on the call here are allowing themselves to further their education, propel themselves to be very successful when hockey is over. And we all have to plan for that. No matter how good you are, we're all playing the men's league, no matter what, right? Even Yager is going to retire and play men's league probably. So no matter if your career is till you're 40 years old and you get the opportunity to play for an elongated competitive career, or like most of us, you know, whenever you're early 20s, mid 20s, and the game stops and you can't be competitive that anymore, you have to move on. And obviously, Guy, I think you're putting yourself in a position to be very, very successful. And Gio, I know your work ethic, I know the type of person that you are. You know, you're going to do great in that field as well, as long as you do your work, you study, and you get good grades. But you know, moving back to the hockey side, Gio, I know you're past a lot more than guys, so I'll give this to Guy first. Mitch said you really didn't have a goalie coach growing up. Is that correct? Until you got to the level?
I've been working with there's a man in Arizona named Jeff Tecca. He coached club for ASU. I've been working with him for almost 12 years.
Oh boy.
It's like I never really had goalie coaching on teams until 16s. But yeah, I worked with him privately a decent amount, which was nice. It was nice to have somebody out there because you know, up until these last few years it's been a little isolated. So it's tough to get a lot of exposure out there, but it was nice to have someone out there to just focus on goalies. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a good segue. Most of us, and these are the guys that are on the call, or goalies that work with us, you know, we're very fortunate enough to get out on the ice with you guys maybe once a month or twice a month in some of the organizations that we work with. And obviously we have the pleasure of working with you guys outside of those practices. But for Guy, you know, you had your base, you had your foundation with Tecca, but when you were isolated and trying to work through a season, through a practice with a team, how did you find time to work on your skills? How did you improve yourself in that environment?
It's really just finding time between drills or when players are on a knee learning a new drill. There's always time to work on skating. And I can't emphasize enough, once you get to juniors in college, skating is just paramount to anything you want to do. Because once you start lagging behind passes and the shooter's getting to the puck before you are, that's when you're going to start getting scored on. So as long as you got to keep it up and you've got to make sure that you're beating passes across and getting set, that's absolutely the biggest thing that I learned.
That's the foundation of success. And Gio, there's been numerous amounts of times where I've seen that look behind of a mask and say, Coach, are you kidding me? We're doing more skating. So I know that we've drilled that in your head, and the guys that work with me or Mitch, we always spend, you know, a good chunk of time on movements. That's so very important. But, you know, there's been times where we got to work together throughout the year, and there's been times where, you know, you went off and worked with other teams and other coaches. You know, how did you structure your practice to help you propel yourself to get to the level that you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working since I've been a goalie, you know, since I was really little. And, you know, first thing we always worked on was skating. And when I was younger, I was always that athletic, quick moving, wanting to do splits all the time, stuff like that. And then kind of when I transitioned into juniors and had, you know, different eyes looking at me, different goalie coaches and whatnot, I kind of transitioned just to have a little bit more poise in my game. And, you know, like Guy said, it's important in between drills and whatnot just to be able to work on different skating. And like he said, staying in front of passes and, you know, keeping up with the timing, that's the biggest thing. So, I mean, you know, it's important to be able, like with everything in life, just to be able to have good time management, and being able to have good time management in practice is key as well.
Yeah. All right. So not all of us are lucky enough to be with you doing off ice right now to stay, you know, on top of your goalie stuff. I mean, obviously you're not skating, so what are you doing?
Goalie specific stuff, it's just a lot of balance board and racquetballs. It's a lot of the stuff you'll see on social media. Like I've seen you with the little 3-prong triangle.
Yep.
Like hmm Yeah, it's stuff like that and reaction balls. And then as far as conditioning and strength goes, I'm just on the I'm on Lincoln's program right now. They sent it out about a week ago, and it's a lot of running and sprints, and then just total body workouts. So it's just a lot of all around stuff.
Gio?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working out just in my basement and whatnot, kind of doing like quick 30-minute burners and whatnot. And then for the goalie side, stretching is really important. I mean, I've been getting cramped up here and there, so just stretching and like Guy said, just different ball tracking and whatnot, and just trying to keep my eyes going, because I think once we're able to step back on the ice, just getting your timing back is going to be the biggest thing. So I think the more we can do with our eyes and our, tracking, the easier it's going to be to transition back onto the ice.
Yeah. I mean, we always try and encourage as much as we can to stay busy. Any type of movement's good movement, especially now. I don't know about everybody else, but me and Mitch kind of joke about this. We're starting to lose our minds a little bit. I know, Gio, that's the first thing that you said when you jumped on the call, was like, I'm starting to go crazy. So we have to find ways to structure our day. And I think that's important. And it's really cool to have this platform. So if you guys want to jump in with questions, please do. We don't want to monopolize your time. And obviously I'm intrigued to know as much about these two as I can. Sitting on the other side, I'm always hungry for knowledge. But if you guys have questions for Guy or for Joey, please type it up. Let us know. Joe, you grew up in a pretty cool environment with your brother, who was, I think he led the league in points the 1 year as a defenseman.
Yeah.
Then when you got back and were able to put on a little Flyer jersey, the 1 year you guys won the EHL and you made it to the finals and you had a lot of success. What makes you or some of the teams that you were a part of successful?
Just how well the locker room animosity is, how well everybody gets along. Honestly, I've been on teams that, outside of hockey don't really hang out as much. And, that kind of results back onto the ice. I mean, especially this year with Utica, I mean, we're all brothers on that team. We loved each other and we would do anything for each other. And that kind of resulted back in, our play, and it really showed. But when it was practice time, it was a war out there. We competed against each other, and that's what made us better players in the long run. So it was nice just to be able to, compete against each other. And, the more you're competing and the more you're pushing each other, that just shows the more you care about each other. And that's when you really start to see the results and the wins really start to pile up.
There's a mentality to winners, right? And I think that's important to know. There is this lovey-dovey feeling out there that everybody's special and everybody's, entitled to whatever they want. But there is a difference between people that are very successful, and this is depending on whether or not it's in sports, academic life, or whatever. Mm-hmm. When you put in a lot of time and effort and you're focused and you're dedicated, there's a level of commitment that you expect out of yourself and out of your teammates, right? And then you get the opportunity to go compete. Not enough people, I think, are competitive enough anymore. Not enough people want to be good at something. Not enough people want to be the best. And when you find a group of individuals that kind of buy in, like this year for you guys, for Utica, I mean, I know Gary Heenan's a very intense coach, and he demands respect, and he steers the ship like a captain should. And he's had a lot of success over the last couple of years with a lot of successful programs. And I think that comes back to the level of professionalism and also the common respect, right? I think respect's a big word. Respecting the sport, respecting your role and your responsibility to the team, and also respecting the people who have done it before you. Guy, you're in a little bit of a different situation where, you're going and you're in this new world of the USHL, Omaha Lancers, pretty big stage. And then the next ladder that you're going to climb is Division I at Air Force. You seem like a well-rounded individual. You're very intelligent. Obviously, your play speaks for yourself. But how do you go into a locker room with all new guys that you don't know and weed through that type of environment? Are you a loud leader, a boisterous leader, a guy that speaks up? Are you a leader by a quiet leader that does the right thing and want people to see it? Or are you one that just goes about your business and puts your headphones on and stops pucks and doesn't really ruffle any feathers? What type of person are you, or what type of leader are you?
I'm definitely not a loud guy in the locker room. I can definitely say that. I know at least with Omaha when I first got there, I didn't talk the whole time because, I mean, it's a big shock. Like, it's a very new environment to a prep school locker room or a club locker room. Like, it's just a lot different. But the one thing I've found over the years is that you don't have to go out of your way to like be a super loud leader or anything like that. At least as I found as a goalie, is that if you go out there and, you do your best and you give your team a chance to win every night, that, you'll start building those relationships, because kids are going to notice that if you're putting in the work off the ice and in practice, they're going to notice that you're doing everything you can to help your team, and, they're going to respect that.
Yeah. It's this thing called groupthink or group talk, or you guys go to some of you guys have all been at school and done group projects, and you have the person that takes over everything and does everything, and then you have the middle group that kind of helps and assists, and you have a couple of kids at the end that do absolutely nothing, and you guys all get the same grade, right? We've all been in that environment. The hockey team is kind of the similar way, right? You don't want to be, I never wanted to be the leader that was out in front bossing around everybody or trying to force control. I wanted to be a leader that was quiet, confident, and people that a person that someone could come to and trust, and also respect. Respect was a big word for me. I always wanted to be respected. I think if you respect yourself and people respect you, it helps you in different environments to feel comfortable. But, obviously you have a long road ahead of you, and you're going to have to manage a lot of different locker room environments and egos. I know for me, it was kind of a really surreal experience when I got the opportunity to go to Hershey. I was a Division III kid, and I mean this, I had no idea that I was going to be able to go and play professionally at that time. And I really didn't play. I practiced. I'll call a spade a spade. I sat on the bench. I was a backup. I had a couple opportunities and nothing really came about, and then went from there. But the first time I walked in that locker room, it's your first impression, and you have to make sure it's the right one. And I'm sure, Gio, you walked in the locker room this year, first practice, college is a little bit different because you have the whole move in, you get to see guys in classes before the season actually starts. But even that first time that you walked on campus and it was the first team environment, it's a little bit overwhelming, and you have to be confident in those type of environments. How do you handle those situations? Obviously, those are a little bit easier. I think one question I want to ask you, G, is how do you prepare yourself to deal with conversations with coaches, such as the recruiting process with Gary, because he's relatively a big ego. He can be intimidating. Or, Rocky Russo is another a great example, right?
Yeah.
From the same cloth. You had to deal with some very awesome coaches. They were very good coaches, but they were very firm on their opinion. How do you manage those type of conversations? Because I know I have a few goalies that I've been working with, and sometimes they don't rise to that occasion, or they don't have good speaking skills. And then they go into a meeting with this whole idea of what they want to talk about, and then they get bullied out of it, and they don't even get to the point. So how do you manage those type of environments?
Yeah, I mean, Rocky for me was a little bit different. I was younger at the time. I was only 17. So, he kind of, would hold the conversation for the most part. And then as the year progressed, I kind of learned how to deal with him a little bit differently, and just, when to talk and versus when not to. He would always kind of, jump down your throat if he didn't agree with what you were saying. Coaches usually don't want to hear from you, or I'm sorry, Rocky always used to say that don't come into his office unless you want to change something. So I knew whenever I was going in there, it might be criticism, but at the end of the day, he wants to make you a better player. So I think Rocky did a really good job preparing me for Gary, like you said too, because, Gary's a strong-minded guy too, but I think Gary is more willing to listen, especially to the goalies. He's a little bit different. So it's nice, that I think he's got a little bit more experience with dealing with goalies and whatnot. So it's nice that he's just, kind of down to earth with us and really able to listen to us and whatnot. So he makes it easy, and I'm old enough now where I'm not intimidated or anything like that by the coaches. It's kind of just a personal conversation, nothing really different. So.
That's good.
You know, Matt, you brought up a good point about being a leader and being confident. The one thing, and I'm sure everyone's been watching on ESPN or knows about it, they've been doing the story of the Chicago Bulls. And the one thing that stands out, and I admit I was not a big Michael Jordan fan, but I obviously recognize how good he was, arguably the best player, second best player ever to play. They did a thing on him of how competitive he was. And one of the things was when they did sprints at the end of practice, he won almost every day. So if the best player, second best player in the world in the history of basketball can win a wind sprint, then that's how you lead. You don't always have to lead by talking. You can lead by example. And I think that, especially for goalies, so a lot of players and coaches don't want to hear from goalies. The best thing you can do on the ice is to battle your butt off in battle drills and in skating drills. Don't give up and compete with those forwards and defensemen. And I know it's hard to do it in all that full gear, but I've seen goalies do it. And if you can do that, you're going to earn your team's respect without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest term to kind of put it is you can't be fake. People see right through that. And especially when you're in a locker room, if you're the raw guy and you say, yeah, let's all go do this. I'm going to go do 50 push-ups, or I'm going to go hit the gym. Why aren't you guys at the gym? And then you don't show up, right? You're not holding yourself accountable. People will see right through that. So make sure you are who you are. Be the person that you can be, and make sure that you're pulling the rope in the right direction. You know, be part of the solution, not part of the problem. If you're outgoing and you want to speak up and you have earned that respect, right? That goes a long way. You have to earn it. It's not given. You earn the respect from the coaches and your teammates. You can speak up and you can be a leader. I was outgoing and held my teammates accountable, but I also played with a lot of goalies that were very, very quiet. And again, it's about how you communicate to your teammates and how do you manage those personalities and those relationships. Guy, you know, you're in a situation where you're going to be going into a Division I locker room, going into a pretty well-renowned, well-known university and a program. What do you think gives you the best foundation to build from to be successful at that next level?
What do you mean?
Like when you're playing it, you touch on your skating, and obviously that's a good point.
Oh, okay.
Like, is it your mentality? Like, are you a really mentally strong kid that reads the game well, can handle ups and downs? Are you a really hardworking goaltender that outworks everybody? Are you an intelligent goaltender? Are you always studying film and studying yourself? Like, what gives you, if someone watched you and had to put one verb or one adjective next to your name to describe you, what would they say?
I think it'd be compete, honestly. That's one thing that I've always promised any coach for a team that I'm going into is you're never going to have a problem with me going into a practice or a game and not giving 100%, because like you guys said, that's a big way to earn respect if your teammates see that. And the other thing is, if you're in practice and you give up a rebound off your pad to the right side, I mean, that's just something I've always been told. Look, you got to follow that rebound, because if you start getting into those habits in practices, that's the kind of stuff you're going to do in game, no hesitation. So it comes down to battle drills and skating drills and stuff like that. If you got to give 110% each time, even if you're absolutely gassed at the end of a 2-hour practice, because that's the thing that's going to make a huge difference when you're going into a new program.
It comes down to what you're able to do and how consistently can you do it. And I think that comes down to your structure and your process. And it sounds like you have a very strong workout routine that you're working on with the workout program that they provided to you. One question that was provided to us from the chat from Sonny is, and I'll propose this to everybody: what are the best workout drills in a mini gym? So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say a mini gym might be a home gym, something that we're kind of all stuck in. I think we touched on it a little bit that you guys are working on hand-eye coordination drills and whatnot, but are there any other exercises that you really enjoy doing that you think that helps you prepare yourself to get stronger and also not get hurt? Gio, your dog is going bananas. So
No, we're good now. We're good. Sorry. I just try to focus on a lot of core stuff, because I find, goaltending is a lot of balance and whatnot. So I just try to keep my core as strong as possible. one way of doing that's obviously being on the ice. So I've just been doing a lot of core exercises and, like I said, just stretching and just trying to stay loose. I mean, there's only so much you can do in a basement or a home gym or anything like that. So you just got to use your sources, well, and do what you got to do with what you have and make do with it. So.
And I think to touch on that, like we spoke about that core and that foundation is really where your balance and your agility comes from. If you guys are looking for resources, again, I'm going to steer you towards YouTube. There's a lot of good resources out there. Just make sure you're doing your homework, realizing that you're learning from a video. So don't pick some crazy exercise that you've never done before. You want to look for simple, easy body weight drills and drills to train your core. You can do sit-ups, you can do crunches, you can do leg lifts, you can do a lot of drills that you're moving and engaging your core. Planks are great. Anything like that will keep you strong. Again, we're in this time where we have a unique time to focus on us. And you don't want to overdo it, but you also don't want to underdo it. So you don't want to exhaust yourself, because this is a good time for us to recover, allow our body to kind of rejuvenate and recover from a long winter. But at the same time, you don't want to go back 5-10 spots. So anything that you guys can do, hand-eye is probably the most important in my eyes, because I think when you're playing, that's the first thing that goes is your eyes, is your vision. You're probably not going to lose too much of your stamina and your endurance because you guys are all younger. You're not fat and out of shape old guys like us. No offense, Mitch, but it takes us a lot longer to get back into shape than you guys. So, I mean, Guy, you probably are away from the rink as well. Are there any off-ice exercises that you are doing now or like to do that you could possibly provide some guidance for Sonny?
Yeah, to touch on the same thing that Joey said, it's just a ton of stretching and a lot of core work. Because I mean, there's only so much you can do with body weight. I still like leg workouts with just body weight, because if you do a high amount of reps, I feel like it strengthens the flexors a little bit and helps you just build strength all around. But for the most part, it was, like he said, a lot of stretching and core work, because I mean, when you strengthen your core, it makes a much bigger difference than you think. And then stretching is just injury prevention, honestly, because a lot of the stuff that happens is unfortunate and out of the goalie's control, but at the same time, a lot of stuff can be prevented just by staying on top of that stuff.
Yeah, we had Dex on last week, and he was a big advocate of that foundation piece of your strength, or you as an athlete is strength, and that's going to be the biggest piece that kind of prevent injuries. You can't, you're never going to prevent injuries 100%, but you're going to hopefully reduce the risk of injury. So when you guys are at home, stay busy. I think a good exercise, if you guys are looking for something to kind of do core, balance, and a little bit of stretching that may get overlooked a little bit, is yoga. I never really liked yoga growing up, but every time I used to do it, it would always focus on the breathing, and for some reason I was always getting lightheaded. So I never really got into it when I was younger. Finally figured out how to breathe right. I know it's crazy. And I really like yoga now. It really allows me to kind of recenter myself. You work on balance, you work on coordination, you work on core. There's some strength involved in that as well. So it's a nice little piece where maybe you guys want to check it out. Mitch, you got anything to add or any questions for the gentleman?
Yeah, well, so I like to actually ask this question of guys, especially of these guys' levels. And I think we have a lot of younger guys that want to get to that next level, whether it be A to AA, AA to AAA, AAA to juniors. So, Gio, I'll start with you. I mean, what is the biggest difference between going from your journey, going from Tier 1 hockey to the EHL to the CCHL to now NCAA D3? What happens with the game where you have to develop?
Just being able to keep up with the speed first and foremost. As you progress up the ladder, it gets quicker and quicker and quicker. And then the other side too is just the importance of being able to read plays. The more you can anticipate and see the play coming, the easier the game's going to be for you. I think that's one of the biggest things. And it took me a little bit to, start to develop that. And I started to study different goalies and see what they were doing and see how, they were limiting their movement and stuff like that to make their game simpler and easier and more effective. Because I think once you start getting up to the next level, you know, it's almost like less is more in a sense, you know, just being able to track the puck and keeping that, you know, holding that angle for an extra second, you know, it's going to make a ton of difference. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, I think, is just adjusting with the speed and, you know, starting to anticipate and reading plays better. Because, you know, as you get up the levels, you know, the shooters are more skilled. They're able to hide their shots better or hide a pass and stuff like that. So I think that's just one of the most important things.
Guy, I mean, you went from AA to prep to basically USHL camp and then to the NA. What about for you?
Yeah, I think he absolutely nailed it. I mean, it's the ability to read plays makes just such a big difference when you're moving up in levels. And I mean, obviously it's tough to learn how to do that stuff without experiencing it. I think a lot of it is stuff that you learn as you go. I mean, with every goal that goes in on you, you can learn something because something went wrong. And that's something that you just got to be aware of and try and figure it out so that you can fix it for the next time. But yeah, for the most part, it's just being able to read plays and knowing what options are available and kind of being ready for any one. And then the two things that were huge for me this year, at least, was working a lot on tracking because the shot speed gets a lot higher as you go up. So being able to keep your eyes on the puck immediately after the release and straight into you is huge. And then the other thing is getting places on your feet, because if you drop too early and the puck ends up going somewhere else, you're screwed. So it's just a matter of holding your feet for as long as possible, which can be tough at sometimes, but you know, it's just something you got to do.
What is consistent isn't always what is convenient. And I think that's a good piece on the skating part where, you know, what's convenient might be to slide to get to different spots, but what is consistent is what you can do on your feet. I think a good point to kind of bring up there off of that is, you know, when we're talking about you guys and your journey up the ladder, I don't know about for you, but for me, the game kind of got easier as you played higher levels. And what I mean by that is the plays are a little bit more true. When we were younger, or some of you guys are still younger, that are, you know, let's just say midget or below, there's not as many clean plays. There really isn't, right? There's a lot of broken plays, missed plays, bad shots, you know, broken plays that find a way to end up in the back of the net. When you play higher, at a higher level, for me, the games were a little bit more clean. You could read a breakout. You could read a power play. You could read an in zone entry. You kind of understand and see tendencies about how teams are setting up on their offensive zone, maybe a face-off play. So, you know, for you guys, did you see the same thing as you guys climb the ladder? I know, Joe, you went from CCHL to Division III, and every league is different. The CCHL to Division III to Utica and UCHC is a different league, right? Like the CCHL, when I was there, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's pretty offensive. There's some guys that are really skilled, pretty good, not as physical as maybe like the North American Hockey League, a little bit more speed. When you got to college, it's a new game. So how do you transition? I know it's easier when it gets a little bit more clean, but how do you transition from reading different type of attacks? When you're in Canada, it's a little bit more controlled offensive. When you UCHC, it's a million miles an hour, go, 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 go. And every time they're getting a chance, they're throwing it at the net or they're making plays. And how do you manage that?
Yeah, like you said, I think the play in Canada is just, you know, a little bit more skilled, less physical and stuff like that, which like Guy said, makes it more important to stay on your feet and whatnot. And then going into college, you know, like I said, practices and games, everybody's just battling. So for me personally, I think that helps my game because, you know, there's less skilled plays and kind of just shots from the point and just being able – the biggest thing going into college I found was the net front presence. You know, you're always battling with the guy in front in games or even in practice. You know, that's one thing Gary works on a lot is in practice is just battling with net front guys. So at the start of the year, I kind of struggled with that a bit. And we made that a point with not only my goalie coach, but with Gary himself, just to, you know, work on that and being able to battle through the screens and stuff like that. And once I started to do that, my game, I started to really find my game a lot better and, you know, it makes things easier. So.
And Guy, you've been climbing the ladder, going from prep school up to the USHL. You know, for you, that's a pretty quick jump from level to level. How did you said you learned from experience, and I think that is honestly the only way that we can learn. We can watch videos, we can do training, we can have discussions, but until you're in the fights, you don't know how to handle it. How did you learn how did you learn by trial by fire? You get thrown in the deep end and you have to learn how to swim. How did you manage that?
Yeah, so midway through my season with Topeka, I actually went through like a 2 or 3 game slump. And I actually think that was very good for me because it helped me realize that, look, you can't go into a game and just assume that you're going to play well and stuff like that. Like mental preparation, I realized this year, and I probably should have figured it out a lot earlier, is it's just unbelievably important to your performance in games as far as visualization and stuff like that goes. So I'd been playing pretty well up to that point. And after that 2 or 3 game slump, I actually effectively doubled my routine pregame as far as visualization and tracking and stuff like that goes. And that helped a lot. So really it was just on the mental side of it was the big adjustment, is finding out that you got to put in a lot more work on that side if you want to keep performing at a level that, you know, you expect of yourself.
I think it's a good segue. I think one thing that every goalie has is a different routine of what they do before games. You read on In Goal magazine and online, you know, what Holtby does and what all these different goalies who Carey Price does. Gio, walk us through what's your pregame routine?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, Matt probably knows I'm kind of more of a laid back guy, so I don't like to have too much stuff, but I do have a pretty weird routine, I guess, if you look at it. I like to get to the rink. I'm usually the first one there if I'm playing that day, so I like to get there early, and then first thing I like to do is just get my sticks taped up, and then once that's out of the way, kind of wait for Gary to come in. He usually gives us a little pre-scout on the team we're playing that night, and then I kind of go into a little private area and I stretch my hips, and during that time I like to visualize, you know, what's going to happen during that game and stuff like that. And then just a quick little team warm up, and then I do about some ball tracking, and then for about 5 minutes, and then I just stretch out the legs a little bit more, and then usually like to get dressed right before puck drop almost. I'm always trying to rush out of there. I don't like to be ready too early. I kind of like to time it well. So like there's a lot of timing that goes into it, but other than that, I just keep it light with my routine. So
Guy, what about you?
I'm actually pretty similar. I'll get to the rink, and the first thing I'll do is tape my sticks. That's usually I believe an hour or around 2 hours before puck drop is when our team is usually supposed to get to the rink. So I'll tape my sticks and put them back, and then I actually immediately go into racquetballs after that on my feet. So you'll do stuff off the wall and then some juggling and stuff like that. After that, just some hip stretching to try and get everything warmed up. And then our team goes and does our dynamic warm up. And then after that, I'll put on half my gear on the bottom, and then your blocker and glove. And then I go out and do a butterfly, and that's a little bit more visualization stuff, is trying to track stuff off the wall under your gloves and trying to just get your eyes ready and stuff like that. And then you put on your top half and you're ready to go.
Everybody has their own recipes to success. One of the goalies I played with, when Gio was running around the locker rooms and was our water boy, was S.J. Brote. Most of you probably don't know this goalie, but he was a very, very good goalie. He moved on to University of Delaware, played club hockey Division I, and won a national championship. Was an MVP, but he was a few years younger than me. And one of the things I always saw from him was he almost played 2 games before he even stepped on the ice, in his head and physically. And by the time he got on the ice, you know, he was exhausted mentally, physically, and always petered out towards the end of the third period. And for him, his secret to success was controlling that pregame routine and learning how to prep his body, his mind, his engine to be able to go to battle right. Once he was able to figure that out, everything clicked, and he moved on to bigger and better and was very, very successful. So you guys want to find that routine. It's not going to happen overnight. test out different things. I'm sure Guy and Joe, you guys went through a couple different routines and kind of feel comfortable. And it doesn't sound like you guys are overly superstitious. So if something's thrown off just a little bit, it doesn't ruin your whole day. And I think that's important to make sure you're not 100% hard-coded in everything. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt. I mean, sometimes, yes, we want to get to a rink 2 hours before. That is always the goal whenever you're playing at juniors or college, because we have, your pregame routine, you have a warm-up, then an ice cut, and then the game actually starts. So our time is a little bit different than like a tier 1 or a midget player or below. So find that time frame where you can get to the rink. You're not stressed. Mom and dad aren't rushing. You can get your space in the room to make sure you have your area to get dressed, and then go through your routine and work it out, right? Try different things. When you feel good, try and replicate that. When you're not feeling so good, after a game, think about what you did to prepare and make minor changes. As we kind of progress through this hour, again, if you guys have questions, please jump in. But as we're kind of winding down here, I'll propose this question to kind of Guy and to Joey. You guys have found a lot of success in your career, and you've seen a lot of cool things and experienced a lot of cool things. Sitting in the seat that you're in right now, if we could rewind the clock 5 years ago, is there anything that you would like to tell yourself from 5 years ago that you think would be valuable for these kids to kind of hear? And I'll give this a Guy first.
Man, let's see. I think really it just goes back to, don't worry so much about what level you're playing right now. Because, I mean, a lot of the times, to be honest, a lot of that stuff is out of your control. I mean, for me, if you only have 1 or 2 tier 1 organizations in your close range and you don't make either one of them, then look, it comes down to you're going to be playing A or AA, and that's really just something. There's nothing wrong with that. You just got to make the best of where you're at, and don't focus so much on what level you're playing at. Just focus on what you can control, and that's your skating between drills, that's your effort and practice in games, because years down the line, that's what's going to make the difference for you.
And Joey, we've been through some ups and downs, some conversations. If you could talk to yourself 5 years ago to either prepare yourself for some of the things you went through or put yourself in a better position, what would you tell yourself?
Kind of same thing as Guy. Just have patience with whatever you're doing. At first, if you're moving to a new team, might not work right away, or you might struggle to find a routine or find something that works for you. So I think just staying patient and staying the course. I just think at the end of the day, everything's going to work out. And, God ultimately has a good plan for you. So you just got to trust with what's going on, and, just kind of stay even keeled too, never get too high or never get too low with whatever you're doing. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. And, now I'm kind of at that level where I'm able to, maintain and stay even. So I think if I was able to do that even sooner, who knows what could have happened. So
I think that was a big piece for me was my mental side. I was a little bit of a roller coaster, not really on the ice, but just internally. We all have our own inner demons, and when you're finding success, everything seems all hunky-dory. And when you're getting lit up, or if you're not finding wins, like Guy said, for a couple games in a row, all of a sudden the whole world starts to crash. And then as you gain maturity and you gain experience and exposure, and you have a little bit better footing of what life is, you realize that this is a privilege to play the game, and you're humbled by that opportunity. Mitch, before we let these guys go, anything that you want to ask them before we close it down?
Yeah, let's have a little fun at the end. So, most memorable save you've ever made? Guy, go.
Oh my God. Geez. I back in squirts, I remember one, because we were playing against the team of O2s, the O2 Coyotes AAA team, and I was playing for an O1 AA team at the time, and everybody thought that they were supposed to smoke us, and it ended up being a 1-1 game late in the game, and they passed one back door, and I remember reaching back and just sticking my paddle on the line and just hit it somehow. I still remember it to this day. Fantastic.
I bet you it's so vivid. We all have those saves. Joey, what about you?
Probably my year I played in Pee Wee, Quebec, up in Quebec, obviously. We were playing the Colorado Thunderbirds. They were ranked 2 or 3 at the time, and I remember puck went down to my right side, my blocker side, and it went across to the left side. And I remember I just kind of sprawled out and jumped out and made a flashing glove save in front of like 6,000 fans, and the whole place just went nuts. And I just remember that feeling, it just felt surreal. And, that was probably my most memorable save for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Mitch, you got any cool ones?
Actually, you know what? I'm obviously a beer league guy that I am. Wissahickon Skating Club, Sunday morning. I leave a horrible rebound. And I went over and the whole net's wide open. I just dive over, do a 2-pad jammer, hits my pad, goes off the side, and the place just, and all the guys, the place, we're talking about, 30 guys, just went nuts. And like that save was like the talk of the club for a couple of weeks. So that was pretty cool on my part. Tendler, what do you got?
There's a few that stick out in my mind. If there's a few good squirt ones, I remember those when there was one where there was a 5 overtime district game. But the one that really stands out in my mind that I think was pretty cool was I went to South Kent and played prep school there, and that was the first year they went Division I for prep school. We're playing at Cushing Academy, which was a beautiful facility. At that time, they had some really good hockey players. Two that stand out in my mind right now is Keith Yandel, was a big defenseman back there, and then Chris Bork. Chris Bork is one of the leading goal scorers in the AHL. And these guys both came down on a 2-on-0. And I slid across, made a big sweeping save, got hit by somebody, spun out, and then dove back across and made a stupid save. It's one of those things that just kind of stands out in your mind. I can watch it vividly in my mind. And a cool little big circle. Chris Bork was at Hershey when I was there, and he's a pretty good guy. He's very skilled, but he's one of the ones where if you're looking at everything in general, he's got enough offensive ability to be in the NHL, but that just goes to show you how good the NHL is, right? If you're not top 2 forward and you're scoring 40 goals in the AHL, there's still not enough space for you in the NHL. But overall, just to kind of close everything down here, I really want to say thank you to Guy and to Joey. I'm really grateful to have you guys provide us some insight into your path and your journey. Hopefully everybody thought it was very valuable and interesting. A couple points that I took away from it is you really have to be patient with the processes. Anything that is worth getting or earning, it takes time. And you have to have faith in yourself and your ability. But you have to realize that you are the ultimate deciding factor of your destiny. There's things that are outside of our control, but I know for Joey and obviously with the conversation we just had with Guy, I know these guys are doing not just the bare minimum. I'm sure Guy got his workout routine from Lincoln and is doing that, but also is doing above and beyond. Not just doing the simple things that someone tells you to do, but doing more to improve themselves, to hopefully propel themselves to be more successful later on. So keep working, stay focused. We're all going to get this through this quarantine time where we're away from the rinks. I'm hungry to get back. I can't wait. I know, Joey, you're chomping at the bit. You're texting me trying to get on the ice. Hey, coach, you got any ice? I'm sure, Guy, you're ready to get back going when things kind of lighten up. But we all have to be patient in this process as well. But make sure you're taking control of your destiny. Don't waste it. Be invested in the process. Use the resources that you have. And if you have questions, reach out. I know Joey's always available. He's really outgoing and easy to get a hold of. I'm sure, Guy, you seem like a very friendly young man. I'm sure if any of the goalies wanted to reach out and chat with you, you would respond. And if anybody needs anything, Mitch is always there, always available. Check out his Instagram page. Or if you need me or Mitch, send us an email or check us out on Facebook. But thank you so much for everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week. One note, next week is going to be, it's at 7:30, right, Mitch?
Yes, sir.
Next Tuesday at 7:30, we're going to have another call with a pretty well-respected individual in the goalie world, Justin Goldman from the Goalie Guild. So if anybody wants to jump on the call, again, it's free. We would love to have you. The only thing I would ask is be a little bit more engaged, ask some good questions. It's a little bit more fun and enjoyable. But hopefully, Joey, Guy, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you guys had some fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Boys, thank you so much. Say hello to your families for me. Make sure you guys stay healthy, wash your hands, and stay patient. We're going to get through this.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.